Okay, moving on to oligopolies. A little definition. They are a market structure with a small number of firms, and none of the firms can keep the others from having a significant influence.
Okay, a few things about oligopolies is that they have a few large firms with identical or differentiated products. There are high barriers to entry. Some of these barriers to entry are economies of scale, high startup costs, and ownership of raw materials. The economies of scale would be an example of the car industry because it's very difficult to enter just because of the resources and the costs.
And the firms are price makers because they're mutually interdependent. They rely on each other to set prices.
Since the firms rely on each other as competitors to make decisions on their prices, they will use strategic pricing, aka game theory, to avoid economic losses. So if a competitor or a firm raises their prices, they can match the price or they can ignore the change. And same with if a company or firm lowers their prices, they can ignore it or also match the price. And if a firm increases its price, other firms will ignore it or keep the prices the same. That would be elastic. And if a firm decreases its price, other firms will match it or lower their prices, and that's inelastic.
Even though they're interdependent, the firms can't collude with each other. Instead, they have to anticipate and prepare for the prices set by their competitors. And if they collude, that is a cartel.
Oligopolies are also not allocatively efficient. This graph depicts an oligopoly graph, and this top part shows the elastic range, and this shows the inelastic range right here. And the reason the demand curve is kinked is because it shows how the non-collusive firms are interdependent.
And the MR is kinked as well due to the difference in price elasticities in the upper and lower segments of the demand curve. Now moving on to game theory.
The study of game theory shows how people behave in strategic situations, and an understanding of game theory helps firms and oligopolies maximize their profit.
So in game theory, a firm can have a dominant strategy where that is the best move to make regardless of what their opponent makes.
Something else that could happen in game theory is Nash equilibrium, which is the optimal outcome that will occur when both firms make a decision simultaneously and they have no incentive to change this decision.
Okay, so because collusion is illegal, there is a strategy called price leadership that firms use in order to coordinate prices. And the typical process of doing this is a dominant firm initiates a price change, and then the other firms follow suit. And this means that the prices in game theory are the amount of profit they are going to make off of what their competitor is going to do.
Okay, so before we go into the FRQ, we are going to explain a mini game theory to you. Okay, first we're going to explain dominant strategy, and for both of these firms, they both have a dominant strategy, so let's explain how. If this firm chooses high, which would be these two options, this firm is going to choose the higher number, which would be compared to 40 and 60, it would be 60. If this firm chooses low, then this firm is also going to choose low again because 80 is greater than 70. They will be making more of a profit. For firm 2, if they choose to go high, then firm 1 will choose to go low. And if firm 2 chooses low, then once again firm 1 is going to choose low. So their dominant strategy is low, and so is firms 2. Also, this firm on the side, these front numbers are always going to correlate with the firm to the left, and the numbers on the right are going to always correlate with the firm on the top. The point of game theory is to strategically choose which option is going to make you more profit, and that is why when firm 1 goes high, that this firm too is going to choose low, because out of these two options, 60 is going to make them the most profit, and vice versa.
Now, let's move on to the FRQ. Okay, here's the FRQ we'll be working on. Pause the video and get your answers, and we'll check back later. Okay, question A. If Easy Ride chooses to maintain its current fare, which strategy is better for City Wheels? So, if Easy Ride chooses to maintain their current fare, City Wheels should also maintain it, because by doing that, they ensure that they'll get the most profit. So, City Wheels would then make a profit of 180 instead of 120, which is why they choose to maintain.
Question B, is there a dominant strategy for Easy Ride? There is not a dominant strategy for Easy Ride, and this is because if City Wheels chooses to maintain their fare, then Easy Ride is also going to maintain their fare. But if the City Wheels lowers the fare, then Easy Ride's going to lower their fare as well. And this is not a dominant strategy, because if there was a dominant strategy, then Easy Ride would either choose both times to maintain or both times to lower their fare. And this is because 150 is greater than 120 for if the City Wheels maintains, and if City Wheels lowers, then 140 is greater than 130.
For question C, assume that companies must make their decisions simultaneously and do not cooperate. What daily profit will they choose? Both firms would choose to maintain their fare, so 150 and 180, because in both of these case scenarios, they're making the most profit.
Okay, and then for question D, if these two firms could cooperate, which strategy would each firm choose? Once again, they're going to go with both maintaining the fare, because 150 and 180 is what's going to make them both the most profit.
Okay, for the last question, it says, suppose that the local government decides to provide a subsidy of $40 per day to the bus companies. However, only a company that agrees to lower its fare is eligible to receive the subsidy, and it asks you to draw a new thing showing the changes. This is the new payoff matrix. So as you can see, what would change would be now the lower fare for City Wheels is 160 on the top right, and then 150 down below, 180 for Easy Ride in the same box, and then it would be 160 for Easy Ride on the left.
Okay, this is because you add 40 to each of the lower fares. So this is the lower fare for the bottom, the two numbers on the left, and then for the lower fare on the right, it's going to be those two right numbers, and you just add 40 to those to get your new payoff matrix. All right, thanks for joining us on our econ lesson.
Bye, Mr. McSweeney.